A very warm welcome to Africa Good Morning, where we bring you the news making headlines across Africa. My name is Aina Raizakoya, and alongside me is Ashwin Berry. Now, Monday yesterday was a fantastic day, and I promise you that today will be even better.
Especially if you happen to be a boss. Why? Because today is Hug Your Boss Day. Every day we come in and they make sure the office is running smoothly. Problem with a client, you better believe it's the boss who handles it first. Feeling sick and needing to go home, it's your boss who says it's okay and signs off on your sick leave. Up for a promotion, you better believe they're the one who selected you to move up the ranks. It isn't all roses either. Bosses get a lot of flack for all the hard things they have to do. And sometimes you just need to give them a hug. Good for you. Hug Your Boss Day exists to give you an excuse. But of course, we're in COVID-19, so some
Bluetooth
kind of like
hugs.
Bluetooth hug, make it work. Here's a video on Hug Your Boss Day.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. In our top stories this morning, food systems are failing humanity. Since the Green Revolution of the 1950s, agricultural innovations like synthetic fertilizers, chemical pesticides, and high-yield cereal crops have created an abundance of low-cost food. But humanity's food system often emphasizes quantity over quality, giving rise to a host of health and environmental concerns, says experts. The global food system is not quite the bargain it seems. The low retail cost of industrialized food can obscure its very high environmental price tag. According to some estimates, conventional agriculture, which produces greenhouse gas emission, pollutes air and water, and destroys wildlife, costs the environment about $3 trillion every year. Externalized costs such as funds required to purify contaminated drinking water or treat disease related to poor nutrition are also unaccounted for by the industry, meaning that communities and taxpayers may be picking up the tab without even realizing it.
Now in Nigeria, 75 students abducted from Zamfara school freed. The 75 students kidnapped from Government Day Secondary School Kaya in Maradun local government area of Zamfara state have regained freedom 12 days after their abduction. Following their release in undisclosed circumstances, the students and the teacher were received by Governor Bello Matawale. The development comes amid a military operation against the bandits in the state. The state government last week shut down telecommunication networks, suspended weekly markets, and banned the sale of fuel in jerry cans, all measures in support of the operation. Bandits had been reported to be fleeing the state to escape from the military offensive. In what appeared like a move to underscore the success of the military operation, Mr. Matawale last week said the state government would no longer negotiate with bandits, cancelling his policy of peaceful dialogue with the deadly criminals. He said security forces would instead concentrate on flushing them out of Zamfara.
Israel's accreditation to the AU is dividing Africa. Israel has long sought to retake its position as an observer state at the African Union. It has this status with the Organization of African Unity until the continental body became the AU in 2002. AU Commission Chairperson Moussa Faki Mohammed has now opened the door to Israel again, and not everyone is welcoming his decision. If its accreditation is not overturned, Israel will join a growing list of more than 90 external partners endorsed by the AU. It will have limited access to AU documents and sit as an observer when invited to meetings. Most African governments have been silent on Faki's July decision. This could indicate Israel's growing influence on the continent due to changing global dynamics, particularly the normalization of relations with the several Arab countries in 2020.
COVID-19 pandemic highlights need for self-reliance, says WHO Regional Director. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown the urgent need for global solidarity and reinforced a need for African countries to be self-reliant, says Dr. Mashidiso Mweti, the Africa Regional Director for the World Health Organization. Mweti was speaking at the Steve Biko Memorial Lecture, which was held virtually on Sunday night. 12 September marked 44 years since Biko was murdered by apartheid police while he was in custody. Mweti focused a speech on the global urgency needed to help get vaccinations to as many countries as possible. Mweti said the pandemic had highlighted the poor investment in healthcare that many countries had not paid attention to. Although Africa was not as impacted by the pandemic as previously predicted, the pandemic had highlighted an urgent need for self-reliance and for governments to be more accountable to citizens. COVID-19 should be a wake-up call to transform our society and systems and build a world that is guided by equity and self-reliance.
In our next story, soldiers deployed to fight wildfires. Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs Frans Kapofi last week announced that the Namibian Defense Force has been deployed to help extinguish wildfires wreaking havoc on farms near Ocho in the Kunene region. The fires, which started last Saturday, have not been extinguished and continue to destroy farms, displacing people and killing livestock. An estimated 15 farms have been affected thus far. The affected farmers, who have been pulling resources together to battle the fires, have been pleading for the government to help. By yesterday, the Namibian was informed that the fires were heading to Ocho. The Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs Public Relations Office on Thursday said the NDF's Ochuarongo military base has deployed a group of soldiers who has managed to extinguish a fire at a farm near Ocho.
Tanzania gets first woman defense minister, Stergomena Tax. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu has announced the country's first woman defense minister. Stergomena Tax replaces Elias Kwandikwa, who died in August. The president also revoked the appointment of 3 cabinet ministers and appointed a new attorney general. Those sacked are the communication minister Faustine Ndugulile, Leonard Chamuriho, transport, and Medad Kalemani, energy. President Suluhu brought back January Makamba, whose appointment had been revoked by former President John Magufuli. Mr. Makamba will now head the Energy Ministry. The president appointed Judge Eliezer Feleshi as the new Attorney General to replace Adeladus Kilangi, who has been appointed an ambassador.
TB Joshua's wife evicts some of her husband's loyalists to move as she moves to take control of the SCOAN. TB Joshua's wife, Evelyn, has evicted some of the senior clergymen of his church from the synagogue from All Nation premises in Lagos as part of a crackdown involving her assuming control of the ministry. Popularly known as TB Joshua, the fiery clergyman passed away on the 5th of June this year, just 6 days after his 58th birthday. During his lifetime, Prophet Joshua earned a reputation for always predicting events in Nigeria and abroad, which set him at the odds with some of the other evangelical clergymen who accused him of using witchcraft. According to his church, Prophet Joshua had earlier in a day participated in a church program during which he predicted his own death, quoting a message from the Bible. Over the last week, Miss Evelyn has begun moves to assume full control of the SCOAN by evicting some of the senior clergymen who disrespected her in the past. She has asked some of her husband's disciples to leave the premises.
Some say vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, but vengeance is apparently hers. In our next story, which is not a particularly bright one, we are in Eswatini as bullet hits hubby and wife wife and rips through baby. The baby was hit by a bullet that first hit her father and mother after a 43-year-old Temba Kumalo of the same area allegedly fired a shot at the girl's father. Sources claimed that Kumalo was known to be against the mining of sand from a river which community members and other people from outside Gundvini helped themselves on. Kumalo was reportedly unapologetically against this, as he said the Umpakati had ordered some to stop. Since Mavuso owns a truck that used to ferry the river sand, the two men got into a verbal altercation over the subject. After Mavuso had settled in the car and prepared to drive off, Kumalo allegedly charged towards the vehicle, wielding a firearm, and fired the first shot to the ground. He allegedly proceeded to the car's open window and aimed at Mavuso's chest. Luckily for Mavuso, his hands were on the steering wheel, so the bullet grazed his muscle before it hit his wife on the thigh and proceeded to hit the baby from her back, ripping through her private part. The bullet was found in the baby's disposable nappy.
Moving on to our next story, Kinshasa. The population bans a truck on the flyover in Masina. A group of people banned a dump truck on the flyover of Bitabe district in the commune of Masina to the east of the city of Kinshasa. According to testimonies and images circulating on social networks, it was out of anger that this vehicle was set on fire because, according to the arsonists, it caused a huge traffic jam. The truck had been immobilized against a separator on the grade separation since Friday, blocking the passage of two lanes. One of the people behind this sabotage was arrested by the police. He is seen in an image smashing the window of the truck with an instrument. He confirms the fact of breaking the window, but he denies setting the vehicle on fire.
Now in our next story, we are in Botswana as FCC fights environmental pollution. Francistown City has deployed 30 council workers at identified illegal dumping sites in and around the city to fight environmental pollution. Chief Environmental Health Officer Shenelo Mopako has said some people continue with indiscriminate waste dumping, even though there are existing laws that forbid littering and dumping, which leave the city filthy. According to the FCC Chief Environmental Health Officer, even though they continue educating people about making use of the local landfill, most residents still do not recognize the need to dispose waste safely. He indicated that the local landfill is approximately 6 kilometers away from the furthest residential area. Hence, people should be able to hire vans to dispose waste there. Mopako added, most people dump waste at illegal sites, claiming that the landfill is far, something which I believe is false, but rather instigated by their mindset. He likened the issue of waste management services to paying one's utilities, such as water and electricity, and further stated that people should be able to dispose their waste properly for the cleanliness of the environment.
1,200 houses to be electrified in Bunte. About 1,200 households around the Bello industrialization project are set to have their houses connected to electricity thanks to the World Bank. The World Bank funded the project to the tune of 900 million maloti. It did not only connect the factories with electricity, but also households with businesses in Habelo area in Bunte. Speaking at the launch of the Bello industrial electrification project in Bunte last week, Lesotho National Development Corporation Chief Executive Officer Molesi Ramili said the launch of the project was pivotal to the growth of the economy. This marks a big win for the Lesotho National Development Corporation, Ramili said. He said the Bello Industrial Estate project is one of the LNDC ongoing infrastructure capital project in support of National Strategic Development Plan, strategic initiatives implemented on behalf of the government.
Now, in the last of our top stories, 13 gorillas test positive for COVID-19 in Atlanta Zoo. 13 Western lowland gorillas at Zoo Atlanta have tested positive for coronavirus. Staff were alerted when several of the zoo's troop of 20 western lowland gorillas began exhibiting symptoms, including runny noses, mild coughing, and loss of appetite. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported that fecal samples and swabs sent to the University of Georgia's Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory showed that 13 of the great apes were positive for coronavirus. The zoo also revealed that the gorillas at risk of experiencing COVID-19 complications are receiving monoclonal antibodies. Before the gorillas tested positive, the zoo was waiting to receive a COVID-19 vaccine made specifically for animals and approved by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Georgia's state veterinarian called Zoetis. The doses have arrived at the zoo, and staff will begin administering them to Bornean and Sumatran orangutans, Sumatran tigers, African lions, and clouded leopard. As the gorillas recover, they will also receive the vaccine. Wow. Wow, COVID is really everywhere. You know, we certainly hope that the animal kingdom doesn't have to deal with the worst of it. This is still Africa Good Morning. After the break, we're going to be talking to Dr. Morgan Hauptfleisch. What's it about? Find out. Stick around.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Our guest this morning is Dr. Morgan Hauptfleisch, Associate Professor, Nature Conservation in the School for Agriculture and Natural Resources Science at the Namibia University of Science and Technology. He's here to tell us about how improved technology is helping scientists to better understand wildlife in Africa's relation to soil, field, water, and human livelihoods. Good morning, Doctor, and thank you very much for joining us on Africa Good Morning.
Good morning. It's great to be here. Thank you.
All right. You are part of a study which is called ORYCS, involving 20 scientists and their students and more than 40 colored animals. Tell us more about this.
Well, it's more like an ecological study. So ORYX is a collaboration between both Namibian universities, UNAM and NUST, as well as 3 German institutions. So we've taken all our skills in the ecological context from a wildlife perspective and from a modeling perspective, from a water, from a soil, and stuck it all together. Often the studies that we do as scientists are very uniform and in silos, so people would look at wildlife, people would look at grasses and soils, but it's very seldom that you can put all this information together. So what we've done with the ORYX project is we've looked at a specific part of northwest Namibia, which contains part of Etosha National Park, part of the farms to the south of the park, and Erevapuga Conservancy to the west of the park. Now this area has many problems in terms of degradation, in terms of human-wildlife conflict. And through having a collaboration of scientists, each looking at a different angle, and then trying to model the system and understand what happens and what the effects of each different area has on the environment is important. And not only on wildlife conservation, but for general management of an area, how grass grows, how it benefits the people, and how wildlife move in and out of that area, and then how that affects the productivity of soil and how things grow. So it's really a exploration of our arid savannas, which occur not only in that part of Namibia, but go right up through southern Africa into Zimbabwe, Botswana, Angola, and even into the southern parts of Tanzania.
All right. Now, you spoke about working with students, and I'm curious to find out, are these final year students or first year? Which group of students are these? And maybe if you can just tell us your experience with working with students on this particular project.
One of the important aspects on the project was to have the skills of Namibian and German scientists and students collaborating and working together. So the students working on these projects are postgraduates,
okay.
so they are master's and PhD students looking from different aspects. Namibian students are really good at understanding the context. We are very good at studying wildlife, plants, for example, whereas the German counterparts bring in analytical experience, they bring in modeling experiences, and together that forms a very good relationship, not only in terms of producing results which can be useful to society and can be useful for the agricultural and wildlife industry in Southern Africa, but also to then have increased capacity. So either those students, the German students from an African savanna context and the Namibian students from learning again more about the analytical and mathematical side of the biology, everyone benefits from that.
All right. How has the technology for monitoring animals in the wild improved over the years?
Well, we've done a lot of work through this project, and then also outside of the project at NUST in looking at how we follow animal movements and what those mean. And I think what's really interesting through this Oryx project is we have collared over 40 different wildlife types of animals, moving across fences, moving between national park and neighboring areas. And the information that we can gain from that is incredible because you don't only have individual animals, you have animals which integrate with each other. So it's 5 different species from elephants, giraffes, kudu, eland, and springbok, and looking at their interactions. Something else that's really interesting is the collars of the wildlife not only provide the positions, which we can get from satellite information, they also look at how the animal moves in the X, Y, and Z axis. So that basically means we can tell from the satellite information of this animal walking on the ground, let's say it's an eland, from when it's looking over forward and grazing, from when it's running away from a predator, when it's drinking. So even behavioral information we can get from these collars. We've also experimented with different types of collars because the technology is improving immensely over the whole field.
All right, I love that you mentioned experimenting. Now, I understand that the preliminary results will be released on Friday. Can you give us a sneak peek or just something small on what these results are going to look like?
Well, yes, I mean, we have a responsibility while we're looking at this ecological process, it has immense application for the wildlife industry, but also in general for any manager or any farmer of an area in looking at the interactions between the soil and the air and the water and the animals, whether that be livestock or wildlife. So one of the interesting things that we will be sharing on Friday will be taking this information that we've gathered and modeling it up to 100 years in future. So looking at management types of land from cattle farming to wildlife to where we have a mixture of the two of them, and predicting into the future what will soil productivity look like, what will vegetation look like, how will bush grow, because bush encroachment is a problem in many parts of southern Africa, and manipulating those. So it can provide some real practical visions of looking into the future, and that's considering climate change as well. Another really interesting aspect that will come out is If you put 40 collared animals across a national park and neighboring areas onto a map and you show their movements to people and the movement corridors and their use of water, it's an extremely visual and interesting display for people to see how wildlife move. We've forgotten the basics of studying a springbok and its livelihood strategy, or an elephant and its effect on human livelihoods, and also what attracts that elephant to certain areas where they cause conflict. And I'm confident that we have very good empirical information from this large team to share with the public that will be of general interest, but also hopefully spark some excitement and some interest in young people to want to come and study, to want to become scientists, or to look at natural resource management, or to manage a farm more effectively and more intensively using scientific information that's available. One last thing that I could maybe mention on that is satellite information is increasing so much these days. So that means that part of our team have experimented with the use of satellites, not just visual satellites, but radar and laser satellites, which are available to us through the European Space Agency, and can actually look at soil movements, plant growth at a very, very fine scale, up to 5 centimeter scale. And because these satellites rotate and give us images, let's say every 5 to 15 days, a farmer can manage his farm in an extremely intensive way, or a wildlife manager can look at how there are benefits for conservation from using satellite technology. So we'll be sharing some of that.
All right, where will these results be published?
Well, it's such a varied aspect. We're going to be publishing it in part of a book, an academic book, a lot of the scientific data. But we're also going to be publishing it in some of the public journals, Namibian Environment and Wildlife Society's Row News, for example, and interesting aspects in the media.
All right. Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us on Africa Good Morning. Thank you for disseminating that information, and I will be looking forward to the results of this research. Maybe I can become a scientist too one day. This is Africa Good Morning, and we'll be right back after the break.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Right now, it's time for us to cross over to the House of Stone, Zimbabwe. So Talent Gore can give us the news on the ground. Good morning, Talent. How are you?
Ash, I'm good. How?
Talent, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Okay, Talent, we're just going to go straight into your first story. Zimbabwean court orders exhumation of former President Robert Mugabe remains for reburial. Could you tell us about that? Seems we can't get through to Talent Gore. We certainly hope that we'll be able to do it this show or the next one to come. But there's still something to look forward to, the weather. Check out the forecast. If at first you don't succeed, make sure you try again, especially if you're trying to get a hold of Talent Gore in Zimbabwe. Good morning, Talent. Can you hear us? All right, we did the best that we could. Right now, we're going to link to the next video. Now, the Lignes Maritime Congolaises, the national shipping line for the DRC, opened an office in Walvis Bay, Namibia. Africa Union Cargo partnered with LMC and Clive Smith, the CEO, to tell us more.
Walvis Bay, Namibia, specifically the Namibian Ports Authority, has established itself as a port of choice. Supported by a host of logistics services, the port here in Walvis Bay, Namibia, has established itself as an alternative route for the DRC, Zambia, Botswana, Angola, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. The port, accompanied by a number of dry ports, as well as the new container terminal, Walvis Bay, Namibia, is definitely the logistics hub to be. Seeing this potential offered by Walvis Bay, Namibia, LMC, the national shipping line for the DRC, opened the office right here in Walvis Bay, Namibia. A special ceremony was hosted to welcome the new LMC office in Walvis Bay, and in attendance representing the ambassador of the DRC to Namibia was the Minister Council of DRC to Namibia, Mr. Shaku. Governor of the Irongo region, Neville Andre, said that Namibia over the years have exported non-fillet frozen fish, industrial fatty acids, oils, alcohol and poultry meat to the DRC. In his keynote address, the governor of the Irongo region stated that a team has been established looking at the technical aspects of the cooperation between Irongo and Walvis Bay with the Congo Central Province and Matadi Town as the country prepares for a high-level delegation visit from the DRC to the Irongo region. The LMC offices are currently situated at the Africa Union offices in Walvis Bay. The CEO of Africa Union Cargo, Clive Smith, tells us more about who and what LMC is.
LMC is the national shipping line of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. They obviously report to the Ministry of Transport, and by virtue of their mandate, they are responsible to carry all cargo to and from the DRC. LMC was formed about 40 years ago, and unfortunately, due to various factors, the company has found itself in difficult times. But of course, as government has got the interest of the nation in hand, the government made a decision in 2016 to revitalize its own national shipping line. LMC has then went through a transformational phase in the terms of new management team, and they have started to work on 4 main projects. The first one of that is that there is what we call royalties or taxes that is due to the government of the DRC, and these taxes are to be paid by all shipping lines and maritime operators that carry cargo to and from the DRC. And LMC has been mandated to collect that. The second project we're working on is to establish new shipping lines or trade routes to and from the DRC. This will include a feeder service between the East African ports, including Walvis Bay, to the port of Matadi for imports into central Congo, and it will also then include the export of commodities out of central Congo to the international markets. What is interesting for Namibia is that it would also include the port of Walvis Bay. As we are aware, there's quite a bit of salt export coming from Namibia to the DRC. So eventually the LMC vessels would also call the port of Walvis Bay. And that is one of the main reasons they've chosen to open an office here. In terms of our relationship, African Union Cargo Namibia is part of the African Union Holdings group of companies. On a group level, we have about 15 business units, and we are represented in basically the globe. We have offices in South Africa, in the DRC, Namibia, of course, Zambia, Dubai, China, Belarus, the UK, and it's a diverse group that focus on investment. We focus on property development. Of course, we focus on trade and logistics. And African Union Cargo is the logistics arm of the holding group. We eventually met with LMC in October 2019 in DRC, Kinshasa, and this is where our first engagement started with them. It was here that we realized the importance of LMC as a national government agency and the idea of establishing themselves across the world. AUC then made various propositions to LMC. First of that was that we could represent LMC outside of the DRC. We showcased to them that we have the infrastructure, we have of course, the knowledge and experience, we have the network and the relationship with ports all around the world, and most notably, we have a very strong relationship with our own NAM port here in Walvis Bay. Through these capability statements and showcasing to them our expertise, LMC has gone through various processes because they are a government entity. We were invited to visit LMC offices in Kinshasa. We met with the board of LMC. We met with the government officials from the Ministry of Transport. And subsequently, they have opted to cement this partnership where African Union Cargo is really the international partner for LMC. What our role is, as we have done today, is to establish the presence of LMC outside of the DRC. Our first office was opened in Johannesburg on Wednesday the 1st. This is the second office for LMC. And from here we will open an office in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. We will open an office in Mombasa, Kenya. At our office in Dubai, we will host LMC. And we are in the process to open a second office in Guangzhou, China. Already AUC and AUS have an office in Beijing, but we have determined that Guangzhou is the main center point for exports to and from the DRC. So overall, if one can call it, I don't like the word nutshell, but this is what this relationship is all about. So number one, LMC will be establishing itself in the international market. They will be looking to acquire new vessels for itself. They will be looking to acquire trucks to move the strategic commodities. And they will be looking to invest in what we call dry ports in the DRC, but also in various strategic points in the region. African Union Cargo is obviously very proud to partner with LMC. We constantly remind ourselves that yes, it is a business, we are a private company, but the passion for us is that we are contributing to the socio-economic upliftment of a country like the DRC. The DRC is one of the richest countries in the world in terms of its mineral endowment, but we also know that it's also a country that has got a lot of challenges. And we are proud as African Union Holdings and African Union Cargo to be able to play our little role to assist the government of the DRC. And of course, to cement the relationship between Namibia and the DRC.
The COVID-19 virus spreads mainly between people in close contact with each other. It spreads most easily in crowded settings, closed spaces with poor ventilation, or through prolonged contact with an infected person. This is because, as a person infected with the COVID-19 virus breathes, talks, coughs, or sneezes, liquid particles of various sizes are expelled into the air. Larger particles are called droplets. Smaller particles are called aerosols. You can contract the virus if infected particles come into contact with your eyes, nose, or mouth. Whether you are inside or outside, always maintain a physical distance of at least 1 meter from others. When you are in an enclosed or poorly ventilated space, the virus can spread more easily. In these conditions, aerosols can remain suspended in the air or travel farther than 1 meter. When you are inside, make sure to stay at least 1 meter from others. Wear a mask. Open a window to improve ventilation. And limit your time spent in these settings. To protect yourself and others, always follow these 6 precautions.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to get into our economic news stories for the day. And in our first story, De Beers sales robust. De Beers has reported provisional revenues of $515 million for the 7th auction of rough diamonds held in Gaborone recently. The earnings represent a slight uptick from $514 million in the 6 auctions and a more than 54% jump from the outcome of the corresponding auction last year. De Beers, which equally co-owns Botswana with the government of Botswana, recorded $2.6 billion in rough diamond sales for the first 6 months of the year, more than 1.5 times the level in 2020. However, the global producer said it viewed the second half of the year with cautious optimism as COVID-19 variants threatened key consumer markets such as the United States, China, and India.
Tijuana and Eswatini partner in strawberry production. The production between Tijuana's government and the Kingdom of Eswatini is part of the fruit tree production and marketing project in Eswatini. The high-value crop is currently planted on 0.5 hectares and will in the next phase cover a space of 2 hectares at the farm situated in Muswadiwini. Ministry of Agriculture Representative Benjamin Mamba explained that the project was aimed at improving the general fruit production of the high-value crop in the country. He explained that this was the first season of planting since the implementation of the project about 4 months ago. Part of the project included identifying strawberry farmers in the country, and we are able to locate Maseko. The farmer was then retrained by the Taiwanese government on the techniques of how he can improve in the farming of this high-value crop.
We certainly love some mutually beneficial intercontinental collaboration. In our next economic news story, Zimbabwe utility to cut power by 12 hours a day amid shortage. The Zimbabwe Electricity Transmission and Distribution Company said on Sunday it has begun daily 12-hour power cuts due to limited generation at its thermal plant and repairs on the dam at Kariba hydropower station. The power shortfall is being managed through load shedding in order to balance the power supply available and the connected load. Wange Thermal Power Station is the country's biggest with an installed capacity of 920 megawatts but suffers frequent breakdowns due to the aging equipment. The plant in western Zimbabwe is undergoing an expansion to add 600 megawatts. The Kariba Power Station is currently undergoing a $294 million project which is being financed by the African Development Bank, World Bank, Swedish government and European Union.
The ICRISAT received Africa Food Prize. The International Crop Research Institute for Semi-Arid Tropic was awarded the 2021 Africa Food Prize for work that has improved food security across 13 African countries. ICRISAT, the CGIAR Research Center, is a non-profit, non-political public international research organization that conducts agricultural research for development in Asia and sub-Saharan Africa with a wide array of partners throughout the world. Congratulating the winner, His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo, Chairman of the Africa Food Prize Committee and former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, said ICRISAT's leadership in the developing seeds that not only end malnutrition but survive in semi-arid areas is inspiring other agricultural organizations to rethink seed development and farming practices that suit and solve Africa's agricultural challenges.
In the last of our economic news stories, Botswana's earth, wind and fire. From the current capacity of just 6 megawatts, government technocrats and their partners in the private sector want more than a third of the country's electricity to come from renewable sources by 2036. The target is based on an earth, wind, fire approach. Botswana, as a developing country, has a window up to 2050 under the UN's Conference of Parties 24, within which to develop its coal. This is a period local stakeholders such as Botswana Chamber of Mines hoped will allow near-term developers to initiate, run and decommission while supporting the economy through those years. Even as government supports the near-term developers, however, has its eyes on global renewable energy targets, and under the 20-year Integrated Resource Development Plan unveiled last year, 80% of new power procured by government over that period will be renewable. The target, according to available government documents, is to have renewables at least accounting for 15% of the energy mix by 2030 and 36% by 2036. All right, that brings us to the end of our economic news stories. You know what comes up next? Economic indicators. Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to get into your sports news stories. Now, one of the only times you can mention the letter B without talking about second best is when you're talking about these two clubs, Bayern and Barcelona, and they will be clashing as the Champions League starts. Bayern Munich start their Champions League campaign on Tuesday with a mouth-watering clash at Barcelona as the Bavarian Giants confidently head into Europe, having plundered reinforcements from Bundesliga rivals RB Leipzig. Bayern head into Europe buoyed by results with 10 points from their first 4 league games and confident in their current squad despite no big name signing this summer. Bayern have drawn Dinamo Kiev, Benfica and Barca in their Champions League group. Tuesday's clash at Camp Nou will be the first time Bayern have faced Barcelona since the unforgettable 8-2 thrashing the Germans handed out in a one-off Champions League quarter-final in 2019-2020.
Tunisia retains African basketball crown after overcoming Ivory Coast. Tunisia overcame Ivory Coast 78-75 at Kigali Arena in the Rwandan capital to retain the Afrobasket continental title they won on the home soil 4 years ago. Derek Bowman started slowly in the final, but soon found their stride, and a 12-point run allowed the Eagles to build up a 47-34 lead by halftime. The Ivorians fought back in the third quarter and closed to within 4 points. Tunisia pulled away again to lead by 11 in the fourth, but their opponents never gave up, and in the Navy conclusion, the gap was cut just to 3 before the time ran out.
In our next story, FIA will investigate latest Hamilton-Verstappen collision. Formula One's governing body will investigate Sunday's Italian Grand Prix crash between title contenders Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton because it was unusual, according to race director Michael Masi. The crash had Verstappen's Red Bull lift up off a curb and land on Hamilton's Mercedes with the inside of a rear wheel hitting the 7-time world champion's helmet through the protective halo. Incidents that are different, so it's not necessarily high G impacts or anything like that, but are unusual, we do look at, said Masi. The Monza stewards blamed championship leader Verstappen and handed the Dutch 23-year-old a 3-place grid drop for the next race in Russia. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff said the halo that saved Hamilton's life, and Red Bull boss Christian Horner agreed the device, made mandatory in 2018 to considerable opposition from some drivers, had done its job.
Afghanistan captain criticizes Australia-Spain for questioning a right to play. Afghanistan captain Asghar Afghan has criticized his Australia counterpart Tim Payne for questioning the Asian team's right to participate in major events such as the 2020 World Cup. Payne said the chances of Australia playing a test against Afghanistan in November were not looking good, with the Taliban unwilling to let women play cricket, and he questioned why the game's governing body had remained quiet on the issue. The Afghanistan team has the right to play not only in this World Cup but in all ICC organized tournaments and events in accordance to the rules and regulations of ICC, Afghan wrote on Twitter. You are mistreating Afghan cricket and all the gains we have obtained with the hardship in the past decade. Sport should be separated from the politics. The T20 World Cup begins next month and Afghanistan are taking part in it. Australia's cricket board said that last week it would scrap the planned test match against Afghanistan if it was able to substantiate reports that the country's Taliban rulers do not allow women to play cricket.
Now, in the last of our sports stories, US Open champion Raducanu can rule the world, says former coach. Emma Raducanu's stunning US Open triumph showed the British teenager can rule the world of women's tennis, according to her former coach. Raducanu has become a global sensation after the 18-year-old stormed through qualifying to win the US US Open in just her second Grand Slam appearance. Her astonishing run at the US Open has lifted Raducanu to a career-high 23rd in the new WTA rankings on Monday, up 127 places from her position before the tournament. Raducanu is the first qualifier to win a Grand Slam, and former British number one Tim Henman expects her victory to provide the springboard for a glittering career. Henman became Raducanu's unofficial courtside cheerleader in his role as a television pundit in New York, and she singled him out as an inspiration in her victory speech. You know, if there's one sport which is lucky at this time, it's women's tennis. Wow, so much talent. This is Africa Good Morning. After the break, your headlines. Africa Good Morning has been streaming live from 7 a.m. Now, if you perhaps missed our top stories at the top of the hour, or if you need a recap, worry not. Here are some of the headlines. Africa, 9 ways food systems are failing humanity. Nigeria, 75 students abducted from Zamfara school freed. Africa, Israel's accreditation to the AU is dividing the continent. COVID-19 pandemic highlights need for self-reliance, says WHO Regional Director. De Beers sales robust. Bayern-Barcelona clash as Champions League starts. Those have been our stories.
Thank you very much for joining us on Africa Good Morning. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow, same time, same place. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can email them to us. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. Alternatively, we are on Facebook and Twitter. And like I always say, our DMs are open. And that is at Africa Good Morning. We also do have a website. Please make sure you check us out. It's called oneuptwo. And on that note, it's all our love, all our light.
Until tomorrow, Swera Jaganaka.